Okay, this is the next part to my winemaking. You know, it's been 9 days and you can see this thing's still bubbling every second to 2 seconds, so it's still fermenting, but we're going to go ahead and do a reading on it. So, got a pitcher of star sand there and my hydrometer. So let's crack this guy open. Actually, let me take a break here a second. I'll be right back with you after I open it. Okay, so here you go though. So here's what the wine looks like after 9 days. So all I'm going to do now is, you know, this thing's been sitting in star sand for about 15 minutes or so. I just want to make sure it's nice and sterile, because here's my plan. I'm going to take this guy too, dump that in my star sand. Probably just dump this out because I'm going to replace it anyhow. Did I just lose? Well, I'll find that piece to my airlock and then I'll go ahead and sanitize it. But all I want to do now is I'm going to take this, kind of rinse it off a little bit. I'm going to put it in here and just spin away. And so what we're doing here, let me see if I can't do this one-handed for you guys. So all I'm doing here is testing the gravity. From what I can tell, let's see here, it looks like it's, I can see 1010, so it may just be a hair below 1010. And it basically said if it's 1010 or lower, proceed to the next step. So let me get this out of here so that we can go to the next step of this. Okay, so here you have the bucket of wine that we just took the reading on. I filled a carboy up, you know, with about 5.5 gallons of star sand. Let it sit for a good 15-20 minutes, shook it around good, and then I dumped the majority of it in here. I am sanitizing my you know, siphon stuff, the siphon hose, all that stuff is being soaked in star sand right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'll take this, I'll dump the rest of it into the bucket, you know, let it drip out as well as I can. You know, if I leave some foam in there, no big deal. And then we'll go ahead and start the siphon process. Okay, so here you can see the wine. So what I did now is just put my sanitized siphon in there, and we are siphoning into here. And again, don't worry about all the foam. This is just star sand, that's normal. And according to Craig Tube, he said the yeast actually love foam. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's the oxygen. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what he mentioned. But here's the other thing. You know, the reason you do it around 1010 or lower is because you don't want the fermentation process to stop yet. So what they have you do, I just didn't have the time. That's why I didn't do it after 5 to 7 days, but 9 days was fine. You know, it's still bubbling away. So what this will do is when it fills up, you just put the bung and airlock back on and you let it sit for 2 weeks. It'll finish its fermentation process, you know, get another good CO2 layer in here to protect it, and then we move on to the step 3 on this whole process. You know, that's where you start to degas it and do all that kind of stuff, but we'll get to that when we get to step 3. So, you know, I'm not going to bore you with this too much. So, you know, here's the wine going down. Put that back on. And then here we are filling it up. So, this guy right here, the bottom of that's 5 gallons. So we'll see how much we have when this is all over. And at this point, you don't top it off or anything. So you just fill it up in the carboy. When it's done, like I said, you just put a bung and airlock on it, and then you let it sit for 2 weeks. And I'll grab the instructions here in a minute and show you guys the instructions why this is siphoning. Okay, and here we go. This is the second step, like I said. So you just clean and sanitize your siphon. Sorry about that background noise. That's just our, one of our air things. So, but you see, basically, just sanitize the rod, hydrometer. I didn't do a test jar because I did the hydrometer right in the wine. And your carboy, you rack it off. Like I said, after 5 to 7 days. I did 9 days. If it's 1010 or less, mine I think was 1009. And that's basically it. So then you can see here at the bottom, it says leave it in here for 10 days. So at that point, after 10 days, fermentation should be done. Let me flip over to the third step. So basically after 10 days, they're saying, let me get this to focus. You take another hydrometer reading, it should be 0.996 or less. So we won't worry about that though for another 10 days. I'll get to that when it's time. But you can see this is filling up pretty quickly. And we'll move back up here. And you can see that's dropping pretty good. And at the end of this, I'll go ahead and tip the bucket just so I can get as much wine as I can out without getting too much sediment. So I'll go ahead and fast forward to when this thing is finished. Okay, here's the bucket after it's all done. So you can see, there's hardly anything left in here. Then here's the wine. Like I said, there's your 5 gallon mark. So we probably still got a pretty darn close to 6 gallons in this thing. And that big clump of star sand there was, sitting about that high off this after the siphon was done. It's kind of the funny thing about star sand sometimes. It just bubbles like crazy. What I'm going to do now, though, see if I can do this without making a mess on my floor. It's got a pitcher of star sand here. Go ahead and put that on. And it's probably going to be a pain since it's wet. Get this guy in. Okay. So again, this next part is just a cakewalk, right? All you're really doing is sanitizing a bunch of equipment, siphoning in from your fermenting bucket or whatever you fermented it in right into a carboy. It can't get much simpler than that. What I'll do, I need to try to get this sealed better. Maybe once this dries up a little bit. That star sand is just crazy how it goes all over the place. Yeah, I may not get a good seal on this thing until it dries up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'll just kind of set this lid on top of here. All this stuff is sanitized. I may go ahead and let this dry out a little bit and then just get the bung and everything sealed, fill up the airlock, and then at that point, we are done with step 2. That's all there is to it. So there you go. So the winemaking part 3, that'll come out in probably 10 to 14 days when we're ready for it. Cheers. Okay, let's fast forward about 18 hours. And here you go. So here's the wine we did in step 2, racking it. And you can see it's already kind of, I can see activity down here again already. Kind of see things moving around a little bit. And then you can see this again is going off, every second to 2 seconds, so fermentation's kicked up again in this. So I just wanted to show you guys a next day shot. So right now this wine's on day 10, so like I said, we'll get another video out probably in about 10 to 14 days, and we'll move on to step 3. Cheers.